I'd been running Madison's diner for 3 years then, just trying to make ends meet while raising my 6-year-old daughter Sophia alone. The place wasn't much to look at: cracked vinyl booths, a temperamental coffee machine, and fluorescent lights that flickered when the wind blew too hard. But it was ours, and it was honest work. This particular evening, an old man had been sitting in booth 7 for nearly 2 hours, nursing the same cup of coffee. His hands trembled slightly as I refilled it for the 4th time, and despite his shabby appearance, something about his voice suggested old money, old class. "You okay, sir? It's getting pretty cold out there," I said, trying to be kind without being pushy. "I'm fine, dear, just resting," he replied, but his eyes looked lost, almost confused. That's when my Sophia, bless her heart, looked up from her homework at the counter and announced, "Mama, he looks hungry." Before I could stop her, she'd grabbed a fresh piece of apple pie and marched over to him. "Here, mister. Mama says hungry people need pie." I watched this stranger's eyes fill with tears as he asked her name. When Sophia introduced us both with the confidence only a 6-year-old can muster, he repeated my name softly, like it meant something to him. I brought him the full dinner special and refused his money, but when he pressed a business card into my hand, I nearly dropped it. Blackwood Industries, one of Chicago's biggest corporations. I'd heard the name, but never imagined I'd meet anyone connected to it, especially not in my little diner. "Sir, I can't take this," I started, but he gripped my hand with surprising strength. "Promise me," Henry Blackwood insisted. "If you ever need anything, call this number. Tell them Henry Blackwood sent you." I should have thrown that card away. Instead, I tucked it into my apron pocket, where it would stay for 3 weeks until my world fell apart. The eviction notice arrived on a Tuesday morning like a slap in the face. "Property's been sold. New owners want it empty by Friday," my landlord Derek Morrison said with a smirk that made my skin crawl. I was staring at those papers, fighting back tears and trying to figure out how to tell Sophia we were losing our home, when he appeared. The man in the expensive suit filled the doorway like he owned the place, his piercing blue eyes taking in the situation immediately. Everything about him screamed wealth and power, from his perfectly tailored jacket to the confidence in his voice when he asked, "Problem here?" I watched Derek's entire attitude shift as this stranger, James, he said his name was, spun some story about this being his grandmother's favorite diner. There was something about his presence that made Derek nervous enough to retreat, muttering about checking with the owners. "Thank you," I whispered when we were alone. "I don't know how to repay you." James studied my face with an intensity that made my heart skip. "You remind me of someone I used to know, someone very special." I should have been suspicious. A man like that, clearly wealthy, showing up at exactly the right moment. But I was drowning, and he was throwing me a lifeline. When he started coming to the diner regularly, dressed down in jeans and claiming to be a construction supervisor, I wanted to believe in the fairy tale. Sophia adored him from the start. "Mama, why don't you have a daddy?" she asked one day, loud enough for the entire diner to hear. "James could be my daddy. He's nice and tall and has good teeth." I was mortified, but watching James nearly choke on his coffee while trying not to laugh made something warm bloom in my chest. For the first time in years, I let myself imagine what it might be like to have someone to share the load, someone who looked at Sophia like she was precious. That fantasy shattered the morning I arrived at the diner to find the windows broken and closing soon, spray-painted across the front. The police officer dismissed it as random vandalism, but the note tucked under my windchipper told a different story. "Stop seeing him, or next time it won't just be windows. A friend." My hands shook as I dialed the number on Henry's card, not really expecting anything. When the receptionist put me through to someone named James, I felt my world tilt on its axis. "James, wait, you work for Blackwood Industries?" "It's complicated. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. I'm coming." When he arrived with security personnel and contractors, I knew. When Henry Blackwood stepped out of a black SUV surrounded by bodyguards calling James grandson, I felt like an idiot. "You're not a construction supervisor, are you?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "James Blackwood," he said quietly, "CEO of Blackwood Industries." Everything I thought I knew crumbled. So everything was a lie? Not everything. He stepped closer, and I wanted to believe him. Not my feelings for you. Not the way Sophia makes me want to be a better man. That's when Sophia screamed. I'll never forget that sound or the sight of her backpack lying abandoned on the sidewalk as a black van sped away. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the lies, not the betrayal, not my broken heart. Someone had taken my baby. The phone call came an hour later. A woman's voice, cold and satisfied. We have your daughter. If you want her back, James knows what he needs to do. I learned about Victoria Sterling piece by piece as James's people traced the call. His ex-fiancée, a woman scorned who'd been planning revenge for years. But there was more. So much more that I never could have imagined. There's something else you need to know, James's assistant Rachel said, pulling up files on a conference room screen. 6 years ago, the Riverside Hotel incident. I watched security footage of myself, younger and more naive, helping an unconscious man to a hotel room, a man I'd never seen clearly, who'd left before dawn, a man who was James. She's your daughter, Mr. Blackwood. Madison never knew your real identity. The room spun around me. Sophia wasn't just the child I'd raised alone. She was his daughter, too. And Victoria Sterling, the woman who'd orchestrated James's drugging 6 years ago, had been planning this revenge ever since. She wants us both inside the warehouse, I said after reading Victoria's text demands. She wants us both or Sophia dies. James tried to argue, tried to protect me, but I'd been defending my daughter alone for 6 years. I wasn't about to stop when she needed me most. The warehouse was every parent's nightmare, cold, dark, and filled with the sound of my baby crying. Victoria stood in the center like a queen holding court, beautiful and terrible in her designer dress. Mama, Daddy! Sophia cried when she saw us, and my heart broke and soared at the same time. Even in her fear, she'd claimed James as her father. The little bastard knows, Victoria sneered, and I wanted to tear her apart with my bare hands. What happened next still feels like a dream. As Victoria threatened us with gasoline and Derek Morrison emerged as her accomplice, 3 boys stepped out of the shadows, 8 years old, with James's eyes and my smile. I'm Oliver, the first one said calmly. These are my brothers, Mason and Lucas. We're Sophia's brothers. My world exploded. That's impossible. I only had 1 child. Mama was having 4 babies, Oliver explained with the matter-of-fact tone only children can manage. But the bad doctors told her only 1 survived. They sold us to different families when we were babies. The fertility clinic, Victoria's secret business. The FBI agent who appeared explained it all, how Victoria had been stealing babies and selling them, how she'd told dozens of mothers their children had died while she profited from their grief. My sons, my brilliant, brave sons, had hired a private investigator with their allowance money and spent 2 years tracking down their sister. They'd found us just in time to save us all. Victoria's empire crumbled in minutes. The FBI had evidence of everything, the trafficking, the fraud, the murders. Derek tried to run, but James's security team stopped him, and my children, all 4 of them, were finally safe. I won't lie and say everything was easy after that. Integrating 3 boys who'd grown up in different families, helping Sophia adjust to suddenly having brothers, dealing with the media attention, it was overwhelming. But every morning when I woke up to the sound of 4 children laughing together, I knew we'd survived the impossible. The diner became something bigger than I'd ever dreamed. James helped me expand, but he made sure I stayed in control. This is your vision, he told me. I'm just along for the ride. We created a chain of family restaurants with community programs for struggling families, because I never wanted another mother to face what I'd faced alone. 2 years later, as I watched my husband, yes, we did get married, in a ceremony where Sophia served as flower girl and the boys walked me down the aisle, as I watched James reading bedtime stories to our 5 children, baby Emma joined us a year ago, I sometimes can't believe this is my life. Victoria is in federal prison. The fertility clinic scandal reunited dozens of families. And my little diner, the one that started it all, still serves the best pie in Chicago, according to my kids. People ask me if I have any regrets, and I always give them the same answer, only that it took 6 years for James to find us. but maybe that's the way it was supposed to happen. Maybe we all needed those years to become the people we were meant to be. After all, the best love stories aren't the ones where everything goes smoothly. They're the ones where people fight for each other, where families are built from love rather than blood, and where a simple act of kindness, like giving pie to a confused old man, can change everything. Henry still comes to the diner every week, sitting in his favorite booth, watching his great-grandchildren with joy in his eyes. He tells people he got lost that day, but I think he found exactly what he was looking for. We all did. And sometimes, late at night when the children are asleep and James and I are talking quietly in our kitchen, I remember that scared single mother who thought her world was ending when she got that eviction notice. I wish I could tell her that sometimes the worst day of your life is just the beginning of the best chapter you never saw coming. That's my story. Messy, complicated, and more dramatic than any soap opera. But it's mine, and I wouldn't change a single moment of it. Well, except maybe the part where my daughter got kidnapped. I definitely could have done without that part.